As always, don't forget to check the video description down below for the best price I use on parts and tools for today. Today, we're changing the drive belt on this 2008 Ford Explorer Trac. It's got a 4.6 liter. Let's check it out. All right, the first thing I did, took my little ratchet, my little 8mm, just buzz loose, and then you got this little piece right here. It's plugged in right there. You just kind of take this green tab and push and then pull out, disconnect that. Then you're just gonna wiggle, disconnect that, wiggle, turn, disconnect that, and oh, looks like we got one more sitting right here, and it's gonna be the same thing. You see I kick it back and twist and pull up. It's gonna be hard one-handed. There we go, got it, came. And all I did was push back, twist, pull up, and that popped off. Then we should be able to take this piece and set them off to the side. Now we're gonna be looking at our belt, and that is our tensioner. Oh, let's see. Okay, right there, that's this whole piece here, that's the tensioner. We're gonna wanna take a nice look at how it's routed. The way I do it in my head is I look, where's the circle? It's a big circle, and then what are the dips? For example, this one does a big circle, and it dips here right after the alternator, and it dips on the other side of the alternator, and then it's gonna dip on the crank, okay? Down there on the crank pulley, on both sides of the crank pulley, it's gonna dip. And then if you can imagine, the rest of it is just like a big circle. You just basically have 2 dips on the alternator and 2 dips on the crank pulley. It's kind of, for me, it's like the easier way to remember it. So that is it for the, well, it's not, I'm not done with the video, but for the 4.6 liter, now I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this belt and take the belt off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little special tool. It's got a little 1/2 inch there. I'll leave a link below in the video description for this tool. We're gonna come down here. We're gonna stick them in there. We can get them in that hole. Mine's nice because it's got the detent out, so I don't have to stick my hand down there and push. I can just do it from the top. And then we got a little 3/8 hole right there. So I'll grab my ratchet, found it, and then we're gonna stick it right in the end there, like so. And then it's gonna be righty-loosey, right? So we're gonna push this way, and it's got a good amount of force there. So I'm gonna push, hold it right, and of course I'm gonna need 2 hands, but all I'm gonna do is with my other hand, I'm just gonna come and pull this off the top, and then it'll be off of there. And this one, sometimes, most of the time you have to clear the fan. You have to work the belt behind the fan. Sometimes you don't. We'll see here in just a second. This one, you do not have to work around the fan, which is kind of nice. And I left it kind of still intact here because what I want to show you is as you take it out and you do it in a good way, just kind of remember how it came out, and then you can put it back in the same way. So as you can see, I'm pulling it out from that little hole right there from the tensioner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my new belt, I'm gonna stick it down in there, right? And then I'm gonna work it around that AC pulley at the end of my finger, stick it through that hole, work it around the AC pulley, and then we're gonna come back and work it around the crank pulley. And then I believe, remember I said it's gonna bend at the crank and the alternator, so it should come up over this water pump, then make a circle. You know what, I don't remember where it broke, but we'll see. I'm gonna work it here and tell you here in just a second. Okay guys, I did it without looking at a chart, I promise you. But yeah, it did. It just broke around the alternator right there and right there. Focus camera. And it broke around the crank. You can see it goes from the crank to the tensioner and from the crank to the water pump. And then the alternator goes from alternator to the idler, alternator to the other idler. And where I got hung up for a second is I was like, shouldn't there be, it didn't look right with the pulley right there and the power steering pulley, because it just continues like in a circle. It looks like it should have been more crazy or something, but it's not. So anyways, oh, you can see the belt's hanging off a little bit. As soon as the car starts up, everything will straighten up. A little tip, if you get a parts store belt and you don't get it off Amazon or whatever, again, video description and the link below for that, but sometimes like I've got them from AutoZone and they've been a little short, and you gave them the right model and all that, it still came up short. If it's really short, what you're gonna have to do is look at the numbers and figure out what the measurements mean in the part number and get a belt that's a little bit bigger. I've had to do that like probably 3 times in my 10-year career. If it's not that short, you can take a tool like this, and what you do is you'll wedge it in somewhere. Like on this one, I'd probably go for that power steering pulley over there, and I'd get the belt started, wedge this in there, and then go down to the crank, spin the crank, and then push it on at the pulley as I'm spinning it. Like the easiest thing to do is just get the right belt. But if you're in a bind and you're like 30 minutes from a part store and you have one that's just a little, it looks like it's gonna be a little tight, you can use this tool, and I'll send a link for that. You could just buy it and keep it in your toolbox. There's a bolt that goes through it. I never have to use that. Another thing on like some of your Hondas or some cars where, you know, you got that, you have to loosen the power steering pull, the power steering pump, and it's crazy, or the alternator, you can just cut the belt and press it on, like for ones that call for like 2 hours or something, or you gotta mess with the power steering pump. A lot of times I'll just cut the belt and put it on with this, and it saves me all that craziness. So that's a little tip too. So anyways, that is it, and thank y'all for watching. Just don't forget to put your little intake tube back on, and I'll see you next time.